So what? Obviously the big news coming out of the Broncos is Elway taking a step. I don't know if it's back, down, over, up, whatever it is, yeah, up.
And
so
his idea.
Obviously that means that we have an open GM spot for the first time in what, 10 years, 9 years? So
10, since 2010, yeah.
What are you thinking is going to happen when we get a new GM? I mean, there's some people that are Broncos fans that have only known Elway as GM. They don't know what goes on when a new GM comes in.
I mean, I honestly don't think much is going to happen. Everyone expects like this big blow up but I mean, you still have Elway above, you still have Fangio, you have your whole entire coaching staff. What GM is going to come in, and especially since he's literally worked for Elway and if it's Champ Kelly. If Champ Kelly comes in, I'm assuming things. If Champ Kelly comes in, who's worked for Fangio and Elway, you think he's going to come in and just ruffle feathers? I feel like he's going to come in and just kind of keep flowing with things. I don't see there being any huge difference. Maybe if it's someone that they're not as familiar with it, which I doubt.
Yeah. I'm not big on GM candidates. I'm not knowledgeable in that subject, but I agree with what Mr. Boggin says. The new GM is not going to come in and then just start cleaning house or firing people. I think that everybody's just going to be held onto a shorter leash. So there's not going to be that safety net with that Elway had with Julock and Fangio and maybe even Joe Ellis, or even with the Bolin family for that matter, or for what remains of them. So the new GM is just going to come in and see how things look next season, and they're not going to be afraid to make changes if need be. At least I think so. And that's, if the coaching's not working, if the offensive plays aren't working, if the quarterback's not working, all that good stuff, at least until John Elway and Joe Ellis finally get their feet out the door of Denver.
I agree with Boggins. I agree with all of that. I like you, I'm not very knowledgeable on who's the next up and coming GM. So just looking at it, I feel like Champ Kelly is more known in the Bronco fan world. So he's getting a lot of push right now, and he's getting a lot of hype. And I just want to make sure they pick the right candidate for it, and not just somebody who's, who they know, who they've known. I don't know.
Well, one interesting thing was that they did say, I mean, there were the parameters of the GM search are pretty interesting in that Vic has to sign off on the GM, which is really kind of unusual, especially with a coach that has a record that's losing. And I mean, everybody knows I do like him as a coach, but the fact that they made it clear that the GM's going to have total say in the roster is an interesting point. I mean, that was one of the things that they really emphasized that day when they made that announcement. So we're going to see some different types of, depending on who comes in, I think we're going to see some different types of moves. Elway never moved up in the draft. I mean, we could find a GM that's an aggressive GM that wants to make a stamp right off the bat.
More Bama players.
What's that?
More Bama players.
Yeah, we just finally started getting some. Time for John to leave, but that's what I'm looking forward to seeing who's. We've seen the list of 5. It's surprising Adam Peters and Louis Riddick are not on that list, but we'll see if they get added. But it sounds like the Broncos, because of all the openings around the league, are really trying to fill that position quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you have any favorites going in?
George Payton from Minnesota is somebody that's always courted around the league. He's turned down a lot of opportunities to move on as a full GM. So if he ends up taking the job, that would be very, very interesting. With Fontenot out of the Saints, and Mike and I have talked about this, is that he, when you look at a team that's successful like New Orleans and has that type of talent, you always are intrigued by the type of person who has their eyes and hands on bringing that talent into the mix. So he would be another big candidate.
I think that's my favorite going in. I just think because John Elway wants a fresh pair of eyes for the team. I think I look through all of their accomplishments of what they have going on for them, and I like I don't know how to say his last name.
Fontenot.
Fontenot.
Yeah.
That's my favorite too.
Fontenot is?
That's my favorite too. But see, I'm perhaps far more pessimistic than maybe anyone else here. My problem that I have with all of this is I'm looking at this as from a very skeptical position. I'm not convinced that Elway is not going to continue to kind of try to perform his standard duties, if you will. I actually think that if the team was truly dead serious about wanting to change, one could argue the culture now, which, I mean, having lost 4 seasons, going on maybe 5, I think that if you truly wanted to change that culture within the building, that you need to basically treat Elway as, I know it's sacrilegious as a Bronco fan, but to basically treat Elway as any other GM and any other person and say, look, you have not performed, the door's that way, we will welcome you back in the building because you're playing days, but hey, it is what it is. And so with that in mind, I'm not convinced that the Broncos are going to look at this potential GM candidate as a long-term option. There's a large part of me that is truly looking at this as saying, is this a 1-year deal? Like, are they looking at this as, court cases going through the ownership piece, and we're probably looking at maybe even selling the team, and then therefore this GM is going to be a wonderful placeholder to appease fans to say, look, we're trying, and then eventually be shown the door with Elway and everybody else.
That could happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's possible. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying
that's an interesting theory, though.
Yeah,
I mean, Elway takes a lot of the bad credit, and whatever you want to say, for a lot of things that happen. But everyone has to understand that he has to answer to a boss right now. And so, like Rich was saying, just having a placeholder there while all of this business goes down kind of saves face for Elway. And so when all of that goes down and happens, then he can return to doing whatever it is that he wants to do. If he wants to stay doing his whatever job it is they give him,
golf,
or if he wants to go back to, I mean, as I read and looked at it, it was the GM has the say over the roster, but Elway is the one that's going to be the main, that makes the decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but is the GM going to have say over the purse strings?
Well, from what I read and from what I could see was that the Denver GM position, the GM has final say. Yeah. And there's not a lot of teams that give GMs final say. So that's one of the reasons why it's an attractive kind of position for the Broncos.
That's why I think I agree with Rich in the fact that, like, what Elway did was smart for his own self as well, is jumping out like a year before his contract's up. So he's trying to, like, get away from that big news. And then he's also putting, like, Fangio is having a say in who the new GM is, also like dispersing blame a little bit. And then once you have a new GM, they've said that he's going to have the Matt Russell and John Elway's position pretty much, to where that when we started drafting better, it was because Matt Russell really started getting more involved. But now they're just kind of they're just making it into one person instead, and both of them are leaving pretty much, and Elway's just kind of washing his hands with it.
Right.
I don't know how much Elway's actually going to be involved with it. I think he's trying to steer clear as much as possible, but I think that a GM will still come in semi-intimidated and wouldn't like change up a bunch of things at all. But I think Elway has one foot out the door. I mean, Russell's gone. Ellis was even willing to say that he doesn't see himself past 2022 or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I think things are really going to explode once we have new ownership. I think once new ownership and no one's still there to really hold on to anything, new ownership is going to come in, and even if it doesn't matter who the GM is, they might just be like, nah, new one, and just shake the whole thing up.